Okay, y'all, as promised, I'm over here on YouTube and we're going to begin reading Lenin's What Is to Be Done. Yesterday's live stream, we left off with primitiveness and economism. So, we are going to pick up. We must now deal with the question that has undoubtedly come to the mind of every reader. Can a connection be established between primitiveness as growing pains that affect the whole movement and economism, which is one of the currents in Russian social democracy? So, no, we can't blend them together. And this is what the legal Marxists of back then were trying to be like, well, let's do the Bernsteinism and then let's also do the Marxism. And Lenin's like, no, dude, we can't do that. We think that it can. Lack of practical training, of ability to carry on organizational work is certainly common to us all, including those who have, from the very outset, unswervingly stood for revolutionary Marxism. Of course, were it only lack of practical training, no one could blame the practical workers, but the term primitiveness embraces something more than lack of training. It denotes a narrow scope of revolutionary work generally. Failure to understand that a good organization of revolutionaries cannot be built on the basis of such narrow activity. And lastly, and this is the main thing, attempts to justify this narrowness and elevate it to a special theory, subservience to spontaneity on this question too. Once such attempts were revealed, it became clear that primitiveness is connected with economism. So remember, economism, primitiveness, these were the liberals, the fascists, the fence sitters, the idealists, the ones the reactionaries. Okay, and that we shall never rid ourselves of this narrowness of our organizational activity until we rid ourselves of economism generally, the narrow conception of Marxist theory, as well as the role of social democracy and of its political tasks. These attempts manifested themselves in a twofold direction. Some began to say that the working masses themselves have not yet advanced the broad and militant political tasks which the revolutionaries are attempting to impose on them, and that they must continue to struggle for immediate political demands, to conduct the economic struggle against the employers and the government. And naturally, corresponding to this struggle, which is accessible to the mass movement, there must be an organization that will be accessible to the most untrained youth. What's up, y'all? Thank you for being here. What's up, Martin? What's up, Wet Camera? What's up, Dama? What's up, Inmo? Thank you for being here, guys. And let's get back into it. Okay. And naturally, corresponding to this struggle, which is accessible to the mass movement, there must be an organization that will be accessible to the most untrained youth. Others, far removed from any theory of gradualness, said that it is possible and necessary to bring about a political revolution, but this does not require building a strong organization of revolutionaries to train the proletariat in steadfast and stubborn struggle. All we need is to snatch up our old friend, the accessible, and to drop metaphor. It means that we must organize a general strike, or that we must stimulate the spiritless progress of the working class movement by means of excitative terror. Both these trends, the opportunists and the revolutionists, bow to the prevailing amateurism. Neither believes that it can be eliminated, but neither understands our primary and imperative practical task to establish an organization of revolutionaries capable of lending energy, stability, and continuity to the political struggle. Okay. Let's go back to here. All right. In the article, Where to Begin, I wrote in opposition to Robochea Diella, quote, the tactics of agitation in relation to some special question, or the tactics with regard to some detail of party organization may be changed in 24 hours, but only people devoid of all principle are capable of changing in 24 hours, or for that matter, in 24 months. Their view on necessity in general, constantly and absolutely, of an organization of struggle and political agitation among the masses. To this, Rabochea Diella replied, quote, this, the only one of Iskra's charges that makes a pretense of being based on facts, is totally without foundation. Readers of Rabochea Diella know very well that from the outset, we not only called for political agitation without waiting for the appearance of Iskra, saying at the same time, not only to the workers' study circles, but also the mass working class movement could not regard as its first political task the overthrow of absolutism, but only the struggle for immediate political demands. So, like, so many words to say, you know, the trade union mindset. He's just going on and on and on, and so many examples, you know. He's like, dude, why do your people just, like, you guys just want, like, immediate, you know, demands, like, he's like, no, we need education. We need professionals leading the masses. We need, you know, stop the spontaneous reactionary. It's not rooted in anything. You know, how else do I say it? Yeah, okay, let me reread that last sentence. Okay. Readers of Rabochea Diella know very well that from the outset, we not only called for political agitation without waiting for the appearance of Iskra, saying at the same time that not only the workers' study circles, but also the mass working class movement could not regard as its first political task the overthrow of absolutism, but only the struggle for immediate political demands, and that the masses began to understand immediate political demands after one, or at all events, after several strikes. But with that, our publications, which we furnished from abroad for the comrades working in Russia, we provided the only social democratic, political, and agitational material. But that, with our publications, which we furnished from, and in this sole material, you not only base the widest political agitation exclusively on the economic struggle, but you even went to the extent of claiming that this restricted agitation was the most widely applicable. And do you not observe, gentlemen, that your own argument, this was the only material provided, proves the necessity for Iskra's appearance in that struggle against Rabochea Diella? On the other hand, our publishing activity actually prepared for the ground for the tactical unity of the party. Unity in the conviction that tactics is a process of growth of party tasks that grow together with the party, a precious unity indeed. And by that rendered possible the creation of a militant organization, for which the Union abroad did all that an organization abroad could do. A vain attempt at evasion, I would never dream of denying that you did all you possibly could. I have asserted and assert now that the limits of what is possible for you to do are restricted by the narrowness of your outlook. So he's like, look, cut the shit. Like, stop your narrow shit, stop your reactionary shit, pick up a book, learn from the professionals, lock in, hold hands, and let's struggle through it, you know? He's like, why are y'all trying to just get more money and make better work conditions and just enrich yourselves automatically and spontaneously? Like, fuck out of here. I'm literally telling you right now in history when they did it and it didn't work and it didn't work and it didn't work. It is ridiculous to talk of a militant organization to fight for immediate political demands or to conduct economic struggle against the employers and the government. But if the reader wishes to see the pearls of economist infatuation with amateurism, he must of course turn to the eclectic and vacillating Rabashoya Dayala and the consistent and determined Rabashoya MYSO in its separate supplement. Quote, now 2 words of the so-called revolutionary intelligentsia proper true on more than one occasion it has proved itself to prepare to enter into determined battle with Tsarism. The unfortunate thing, however, is that our revolutionary intelligentsia, ruthlessly persecuted by the political police, imagine the struggle against the political police to be the political struggle against the autocracy. That is why, to this day, it cannot understand where the forces for the struggle against the autocracy are to be obtained. And let's keep going. Truly matchless is the lofty contempt for the struggle against the police displayed by this worshiper, in the worst sense of the word, he says, of the spontaneous movement. He is prepared to justify our inability to organize secret activity by the argument that which the spontaneous mass movement, it is not all important for us to struggle against the political police. Very few people indeed would subscribe to this appalling conclusion to such an extent to have our deficiencies in revolutionary organizations become a matter of acute importance. To think out his ideas to their logical conclusion, indeed, does the task of advancing concrete demands by the masses, demands that promise palpable results, call for special efforts to create a stable, centralized, militant organization of revolutionaries? Cannot such a task be carried out even by masses that do not struggle against the political police at all? Could this task, moreover, be fulfilled if, in addition to the few leaders, it were not undertaken by such workers, the overwhelming majority, by the way, are quite incapable of struggling against the political police? Such workers, average people of the masses, are capable of displaying enormous amounts of energy and self-sacrifice and strikes in the street, battles with police and the troops, and are capable, in fact, are alone capable of determining the outcome of our entire movement. But the struggle against the political police requires special qualities. It requires professional revolutionaries. Thus, we have reached the question of the relation between an organization of professional revolutionaries and the labor movement, pure and simple. Although this question has found little reflection in literature, it has greatly engaged us politicians in conversations with comrades who gravitate more or less towards economism. It is a question meriting special treatment. But before taking it up, let us offer one further quotation by way of illustrating our thesis on the connection between primitiveness and economism. So, okay, I normally don't read the quotes, but I'm going to read it because I think it is going to help deepen our understanding. Okay. In his reply, Mr. N.N. wrote, quote, "The emancipation of labor group demands direct struggle against the government without first considering where the material forces for this struggle are to be obtained, and without indicating the path of the struggle." Emphasizing the last words, the author adds a following footnote to the word path. This cannot be explained by purposes of secrecy because the program does not refer to a plot but to a mass movement, and the masses cannot proceed by secret paths. Can we conceive of a secret strike? Can we conceive of secret demonstrations and petitions? Thus, the author comes quite close to the question of material forces, organizers of strikes and demonstrations, into the paths of the struggle, but nevertheless is still in a state of consternation because he worships the mass movement. He regards it as something that relieves us of the necessity of conducting revolutionary activity, and not as something that should encourage us and stimulate our revolutionary activity. It is impossible for a strike to remain a secret to those participating in it and to those immediately associated with it, but it may, and in a majority of cases does, remain a secret to the masses of Russian workers because the government takes care to cut all communication with the strikers. Oh my God, they're doing this shit. To prevent all news of strikes from spreading, here indeed is where a special struggle against the political police is required, a struggle that can never be conducted actively by such large masses as take part in strikes. This struggle must be organized according to all the rules of the art by people who are professionally engaged in revolutionary activity. The fact that the masses are spontaneously being drawn into the movement does not make the organization of this struggle less necessary. On the contrary, it makes it more necessary. For we socialists would be failing in our direct duty to the masses if we did not prevent the police from making a secret of every strike and every demonstration, and if we did not ourselves from time to time secretly prepare strikes and demonstrations. And we will succeed in doing this because the spontaneously awakening masses will also produce increasing numbers of professional revolutionaries. All right, from their own ranks. That is, if we do not take it into our hands to advise the workers to keep on marking time. Thank you, Martin. Let me catch up with some of y'all's ambitions. Wait, are you leaving? Oh, shit. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were like trying to say bye to me. Okay, let me fix this. Okay. All right, we're gonna get through this little chunk and then we'll carry it over to the next day. Okay. Organization of workers and organization of revolutionaries. It is only natural to expect that for a social democrat whose conception of the political struggle coincides with the conception of the economic struggle against the employers and the government, the organization of revolutionaries will more or less coincide with the organization of workers. This, in fact, is what actually happened, so that when we speak of organization, we literally speak in different tongues. I vividly recall, for example, a conversation I once had with a fairly consistent economist with whom I had not been previously acquainted. We were discussing the pamphlet, Who Will Bring About the Political Revolution, and were soon of a mind that its principal defect was its ignoring of the question of organization. We had begun to assume full agreement between us, but as the conversation proceeded, it became evident that we were talking of different things. my interlocutor accused the author of ignoring strike funds, mutual benefit societies, etc., whereas I had in mind an organization of revolutionaries as an essential factor in bringing about the political revolution. As soon as the disagreement became clear, there was hardly, as I remember, a single question of principle upon which I was in agreement with the economist. What was the source of our disagreement? It was the fact that on questions both of organization and of politics, the economists are forever lapsing from social democracy into trade unionism. The political struggle of social democracy is far more extensive and complex than the economic struggle of the workers against the employers and the government. Similarly, the organization of the Revolutionary Democratic Party must inevitably be of a kind different from the organization of the workers designed for the struggle. The workers' organization must, in the first place, be a trade union organization. Secondly, it must be as broad as possible. And thirdly, it must be as public as conditions will allow. Here and further on, of course, I refer only to absolutist Russia. On the other hand, the organization of the revolutionaries must consist first and foremost of the people who make revolutionary activity their profession. For which reason I speak of the organization of revolutionaries, meaning revolutionary social democrats. In view of this common characteristic of the members of such organization, all distinctions as between workers and intellectuals, not to speak of distinctions of trade and profession in both categories, such an organization must perforce not be extensive and must be as secret as possible. Let us examine this threefold distinctions. Okay. In countries where political liberty exists, the distinction between a trade union and a political organization is clear enough, as is the distinction between trade unions and social democracy. The relations between the latter and the former will naturally vary in each country according to historical, legal, and other conditions. They may be more or less close, complex, etc. In our opinion, they should be as close and as little complicated as possible. But there can be no question in free countries of the organization of trade unions coinciding with the organization of the Social Democratic Party. In Russia, however, the yoke of the autocracy appears at first glance to obliterate all distinctions between the Social Democratic Organization and the Workers' Association, since all workers' associations and all study circles are prohibited. And since the principal manifestation and weapon of the workers' economic struggle, the strike, is regarded as a criminal and sometimes even as a political offense. Conditions in our country, therefore, on one hand, strongly impel the workers engaged in economic struggle to concern themselves with the political questions, and on the other, they impel social democrats to confound trade unionism with social democracy. What's up, y'all? Are y'all fighting in the chat? Don't make me sad. I already told y'all I'm not motivated today. I'm energy harvesting from the chat. Y'all better give me some good energy. I don't even think I have any mods on my stream either. Oops. Okay. La, 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 la. The economic struggle against the employers and the government, some of them will never, during the entire course of their activity from 4 to 6 months, be impelled to think of the need for a more complex organization of revolutionaries. Others, perhaps, will come across the fairly widely distributed Bernsteinian literature from which they will become convinced of the profound importance of the forward movement of the drab, the everyday struggle. Still, others will be carried away, perhaps, by the seductive idea of showing the world a new example of close and organic contact with the proletarian struggle. The contact between trade union and social democratic movements. Such people may argue that the later a country enters the arena of capitalism and consequently the working class movement, the more socialists in that country may take part in and support the trade union movement, and the less the reason for the existence of non-social democratic trade unions. So far, the argument is fully correct. Unfortunately, however, some go beyond that and dream of a complete fusion. This is what I was talking about. I guess I was a little early. I got ahead. Let me read this again. So far, the argument is fully correct. Unfortunately, however, some go beyond that and dream of a complete fusion of social democracy and trade unionism. The fuck? I'm gonna barf. Can't have that, dude. We shall soon see from the example of the rules of the St. Petersburg League of Struggle what a harmful effect such dreams have upon our plans of organization. So, like, look, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but the trade union organizations, like, they're not bad. Like, I'm pretty sure Lenin is trying to say that, like, it has to start that way. But he's like, dude, it can't end there, you know? And this is how I'm interpreting it. It's, if you don't know anything at all, and this is the first piece you're ever reading of anything, you're gonna be like, what is he trying to say? The trade unions are good, the trade unions are bad. Like, what do you want? Which is it? And it's like, they're not bad. It's just, it's kind of like that, what does this remind me of? That Amazon Teamster that was like talking shit in my stories. I don't know, maybe y'all saw me post about it. But they were like giving me such a hard time. And like, I don't take shit from anybody. Like, I'm very nice. But like, if you're gonna come at me with some, hey girly, and like I can tell you're being condescending and you're being a fucking cunt, like, bitch, now you just poked the bear, you know? But I don't even remember what she was really mad at me about. But I was like, girl, you're an Amazon team, like, you're an Amazon, like, your struggle isn't beyond like your workplace, you know, your coworkers, like the company you work for. Like, fuck out of here, crazy ass. Okay, let's keep going. All right. The workers' organizations for the economic struggle should be trade union organizations, okay? Every social democratic worker should, as far as possible, assist and actively work in these organizations. But while this is true, it is certainly not in our interest to demand that only social democrats should be eligible for membership in the trade unions, since that would only narrow the scope of our influence upon the masses. Let every worker who understands the need to unite for the struggle against the employers and the government join the trade unions. The very aim of the trade unions would be impossible of achievement if they did not unite all who have attained at least in this elementary degree of understanding, if they were not very broad organizations. The broader these organizations, the broader will be our influence over them, an influence due not only to the spontaneous development of the economic struggle, but to the direct and conscious effort of the socialist trade union members to influence their comrades. But a broad organization cannot apply methods of strict secrecy, since this demands far greater training than is required for the economic struggle. How is the contradiction between the need for a large membership and the need for strictly secret methods to be reconciled? How are we to make the trade unions as public as possible? Generally speaking, there can only be two ways to this end. Where am I? Sorry. Okay. Either the trade unions become legalized in some countries, this preceded the legalization of the socialist and political unions, or the organization is kept secret, but so free and loose, as the Germans say, and amorphous, loose, as Germans say, that the need for secret methods becomes almost negligible as far as the bulk of the members is concerned. The legalization of non-socialist and non-political labor unions in Russia has begun, and there's no doubt that every advance made by a rapidly growing social democratic working class movement will multiply and encourage attempts at legalization. Attempts proceeding for the most part from the supporters of the existing order, but partly also from the workers themselves and from liberal intellectuals. The banner of legality has already been hoisted by the Vasilyevs and the Zubatovs. Support has been promised and rendered by the Ozerovs and the Wormsis. And followers of the new tendency are now to be found among the workers. Henceforth, we cannot but reckon with this tendency. How are we to reckon with it? On this, there can be no two opinions among social democrats. We must steadfastly expose any part played in this movement by the Zubatovs and the Vasilyevs, the gendarmes and the priests, and explain their real intentions to the workers. We must also expose all conciliatory, harmonious notes that will be heard in the speeches of liberal politicians at legal meetings of the workers, irrespective of whether the speeches are motivated by an earnest conviction of the desirability of peace-class collaboration, by a desire to curry favor with the powers that be, or whether they are simply the result of clumsiness. Lastly, we must warn the workers against the traps often set by the pigs, the police, who at such open meetings and permitted societies spy out the fiery ones and try to make use of legal organizations to plant their agent provocateurs in the illegal organizations. So y'all, they stay doing that shit, you know? All these fucking parties are mass crazy surveilled. You know what I mean? It is what it is. This is what we're up against. This is the new fucking devil that we gotta slay, you know? This is the new demons we're dealing with. This is why we need everybody. This is why, you know, the party's gotta be broad, you know, but it's gotta be led by professionals. And I mean, when you really, like, all these crazy words, but like, it makes sense, you know? Like, it's almost like common sense, you know? But like the indoctrination, the capitalist system, like, it goes so fucking deep that the most basic concepts like cannot get through. Like, it takes work. It takes, you know, you have to want to get it. You know, you got to truly, it's just like getting off a drug or leaving an abusive revolution. An abusive relationship, you know, it's like you have to want to seek out help, information. Like, you have to be able to get off the drug. You have to be able to get out of the relationship. Like, same with this. You know, you got to accept that you got to throw away everything you think you thought you knew. You don't know. You got to be okay with being embarrassed. This shit's embarrassing. Oh my God, y'all. Like, when I would go live, I would use this baby inside voice. Like, I was terrified. I wouldn't even turn on a ring light. I didn't really want to be seen. I was scared. I felt like I was so behind on everything, and I'm so old, and how am I so late to the party? Like, I'm so uneducated. And then here I am, like 3 years later, and I'm like, you know what? These are not hard concepts. Like, I have to, you know, I have empathy for people that, for whatever reason, you know, couldn't make it this far into the consciousness, you know? Like, you got to be okay with that, though. You got to be okay. Like, you have to, like, chill your fucking ego. Like, if you're gonna have a big ego and you can't take criticism and you gotta fucking, you're not gonna last, bro. You're not gonna last. You're gonna get eaten the fuck up, as a matter of fact. You're gonna get fucking whiplash. Like, you're gonna be fucking told about yourself. Like, you're gonna be in pain. Like, you're gonna be feeling it because you're late and you didn't apply yourself. You know, this is why I always tell people, like, Marxism is spiritual, bitch. It's spiritual. The shit that you gotta break through, like, the way that you have to go inward, it's insane. Like, your higher self, that inner voice, like, we're all little gods, like, whatever you believe in, like, it'll lead you. Your higher self, your higher voice, like, people always say, like, you can't be religious and Marxist. Well, like, yeah, I agree with that. But actually, nah, like, you can believe whatever you want. It's literally an economy, you know? Like, it's an economy that works for the vast majority. The only reason why religion would not be compatible with Marxism is fucking Zionism. We see what happens, you know, when they use the religion, you know? I think I'm gonna end it right here. I feel like we made a lot of good points with this reading. And we still have quite a bit of a ways to go. Yeah, we do. We do. But that's fine. Because this is fun. Like, this is fun for me. Like, I am in a way better mood now. And I just feel like, again, if my little ass can do this, we can do this, right? All right, y'all. I love y'all. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? Bye. I can figure out how to end it.